You're listening to Techsuite for the C-Suite, where we bridge the gap between technology and executives.
What up, boys? How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm,
I'm fine.
I'm good. Nice to have you on. You're building Supercast, which is like the largest Farcaster client outside of the actual team building the protocol. How's that going?
Yes, by some metrics it is. By other metrics it isn't. But I'm working hard to make it as large as possible. It's good. A lot of exciting features coming. Happy to be on the pod.
Lovely. How would you actually like describe Farcaster? What is it? What is it to you?
Farcaster for me is a fully programmable social network.
What does fully programmable mean?
Is that every participant has the same level of access to data, which means that you can A, self-host and have the full ownership of your social media experience, and B, you can build whatever you want on top of it and,
It's like for you,
sell it to
Farcaster
others.
is a playground. So it's like a playground for a developer where you can just do whatever you want and you actually have it and you don't lose it.
Yes, for me, that would be a correct definition.
Nice, yeah. It's also like one of the definitions that most of the devs use, which is always funny because the client itself, like the biggest client, Warpcast, also then has some APIs where you integrate with their client. Well, sometimes you actually integrate with their network, which is Farcaster. Then it gets confusing to what is actually like Farcaster, what is Warpcast. So you're talking about just the underlying stuff that you could also run. We aren't reliant on them.
So I try to explicitly build and ship things only on Farcaster, not really on Warpcast APIs. I think we already had, just as in the past, people would be left with nothing if you are building on some Web2 API that Facebook, Instagram, or Google no longer supports. It's a problem for you. The same already happened to people trying to build on top of WordPress APIs, especially around channels back in the day. I think Automod was an interesting example of a project that gained a lot of traction, but ultimately, had to shut down because of WordPress API changes. I build on Farcaster just because there is like a social contract that this will not change, and I can build my business on a very strong foundation. This is why Supercast doesn't often jump on trends, especially around like channels that change a lot. And I try to build from first principles, from primitives that are already centralized and that are on the protocol level.
So like for anyone in business, that basically means, well, you're looking at kind of what is considered law. Law may change, but it takes a long while to change law. Well, if you're building in somebody else's house and you have to follow their rules, you're basically out of luck because, well, if they change the rules, you're changing the rules. And like Farcaster offers this law-like surface area to build on and to develop into. While if you're building on some API like Twitter, Reddit, whatever, and channels being like a Reddit channel, Reddit subreddit or Discord server style thing, for those familiar with that, for others it may be a forum. So like this isn't actually in the law land of Farcaster. This is in the Webcast land of, hey, you're coming into my house. We are offering you a door in. There's also 3 windows out if we don't think that this is working. And what Wei is basically saying is, well, he just wants to build on something that is law, that may change, but not as fast. And he can just fully control and lay the law how he wants to lay the law.
Yeah, that's well said. Interesting comparison. I think in crypto we often try to say that only code is the actual law. So I think the comparison to like a real life law is very often a backwards comparison. But yeah, I guess, this could be a valid mental framework.
No, I think law itself, like code being law, is interesting in the sense that code can change, especially in Farcaster. Depending on some blockchain implementation, it may not, right? And then you can say, okay, this code is actually how it's supposed to run, and the blockchain verifies all of that.
Yeah.
But in Farcaster, the running code itself is the protocol, which then has a definition of how that code like has to be implemented as like a specification. But we've seen that change as well. So we know that there can be changes mean, like to me, it's more like a actual law code instead of a fully solidified, oh, this will never change, which many think blockchain is. But even there, it's changing.
Yeah.
Regarding blockchain, how do you actually explain blockchain to somebody that doesn't even know it?
I don't do that since a very long time. I don't try to explain blockchain to anyone.
What's it to you?
Blockchain for me would be, again, a permissionless environment to execute my code with certain properties, like no one can interfere with the code that I wrote. It has like a shared state, so everyone knows what's the current state of my code or like my program. And it allows you for building things around money, reputation, and social life that are impossible to build on someone else's server.
What I find interesting about your takes is you're taking the social graph and like social network style like Farcaster, and you're saying, oh, this is just a playground for me to build within. And then you're taking blockchain and you're like, well, okay, this is just a financial playground to play within. And financial has, oh, I can do transactions, I can run my code, I can do social stuff because financial is inherently social in terms of status dynamics. We generally think that more money means more status. First, one example of how social can be laid out in blockchains. I think that's generally interesting. How you see it as like programmable thing compared to how many others see it as this ideologic trend.
Yeah. I used to be in the ideology camp. I think, in general, like I'm still I am still a big free market and let's call it, somewhat Austrian economist. There is that in me, less government impact on economy is better. And this way, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I'm a big believer that we can run a significant portion of world economy on Ethereum. I'm less ideological about it because these days there is not much to be ideological about. I think most of this stuff doesn't really live up to the promise as like as a hedge against governments or like an alternative to the usual financial system, because banks still have a lot to say in terms of like how you interact with mortgages, with credits, with payment for taxes. But I can see this being more significant part of blockchain in the future.
Banks and taxes is interesting because in Zug, Switzerland, you can pay tax with crypto, no worries, since like forever, basically.
That's fantastic. Yeah, this is why I love Switzerland.
Yeah, it's interesting. Switzerland has been on this like rapid trend to always be the first to somewhat legalize something or enable something, and then they just always fall off. Same with blockchain. Like the EU has proper blockchain regulation, if you want to call it that, particularly with MiCA, before Switzerland has it. But Switzerland, you can pay taxes in Bitcoin, Litecoin, or Ethereum since I think like mid 2010s. Yeah, well, it was around at that time. It was important at the time. So that is always like when you talk to Swiss people about the regulations, it's always interesting. They're like one of the first, and then they're the last again. It's like really strong start to the race, then lose interest in the middle, and then come back and try to still be there.
Why do you think that happens?
Well, I personally think Switzerland is in a position where it really wants to be the innovation force. And there's a lot of people, especially around like ETH Zurich, EPFL, and those other universities that really drive for that technical spirit and innovation because they see it in research and in their code. Then they get hired to larger companies that just move slower. Then that gets taken out of that like youth and whatever. And when then they see, okay, we can actually have a lot of leverage with this, or this technology is really booming or coming, then they're like, wait, I actually know this. I did this like 10 years ago. Let me see and come back to it. And I feel like that is one part of it. The other part is that the government body is always like, oh, yeah, let's just do it. Then nothing happens. And they're like, okay, this didn't happen to anything when we legalized it or whatever. So why do something now when it's like this typical symptom of if you look at the typical learning rate curve, that goes really goes upwards really, really fast, and then you realize you know nothing, meaning like you fall down really quick. I don't know what it's called. I think it's a Dunning-Kruger effect or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And then you're at the bottom, and then it slowly moves up. Switzerland always hits that bottom and just has a hard time recovering from that, I feel like.
Nice.
Where it's like a country like the United States, I feel like, always has some town like San Francisco, whatever, really just trying to scrape through no matter what. Like there's some guy not seeing the bottom or not feeling it, pushing through because they just believe that hard. And in Germany, for example, it's interesting because Germany will never be the first to anything unless it's for war. That's just how it works. Like unless Germans are threatened, there's not going to be like, oh, Germans are going to innovate anything really. Unless it has to do with efficiency. Like there's really a lot of amount of good research happening in Germany, but no one is taking that into practice. Like nobody really cares until we have to. It's like an interesting dynamic where Switzerland is more, okay, we actually want to be the innovator, where Germany is just like, man.
Yeah, it's much different.
I'm not sure how it is for you where you grew up.
I grew up in Poland, and I'm a big fan of Polish society in a whole. I think Poland is a very entrepreneurial country. We are mostly innovative out of a need to, make something cheaper, more accessible, or to optimize something, less to be, ahead of the curve on the world stage. I don't think Poland is really competing with anyone on the world stage, since we are only a free society over past 30, 40 years. We are still quite focused on just making sure that this piece of land works and is ours and we can defend it, and it has proper transportation between the cities. So it worked very well over past years, and a lot of people are talking about Polish economic miracle, but it's not related to innovation almost at all.
It feels like Germany in the 1950s, 60s, where it became a free country again. And then it's like, oh, we actually need to rebuild this. Where what you're saying is like, oh, we actually want to have this country built because we didn't have one before, so to say.
You could say so, yeah. I can't say much about Polish innovation.
Yeah. I now see a lot of Polish advocacy on the EU level, just because who else is stepping up? So.
Yeah, I don't follow EU politics, unfortunately, so I can't say.
I'm not too deep into it, anyways. How did you actually get into this whole ecosystem of blockchains and all of that at first, in the first hand?
I first properly learned about Ethereum after DeFi Summer, mostly through following random GitHubs and seeing what people are working on.
DeFi Summer is 2021, right?
It was 2020. It was summer 2020. I missed out on this completely. However, it brought a lot of people to crypto, and it brought a lot of smart contract innovation to crypto for the very first time. Before, any innovation would be mostly on exchange level or the blockchain consensus level. And DeFi Summer was the very first time when people actually started working with wallets and with smart contracts. And I was literally brought into crypto through GitHub activity and through checking out different GitHubs. And I would, at 2020, I was quite certain in the camp that crypto was actually a scam and there's nothing gonna ever happen. But I was exposed to the community, and I was exposed to some sort of, let's call it, ETH ideals. I think all the people that I was following on Twitter and on GitHub by that time were very closely related to Ethereum Foundation and to the OG Ethereum mainnet and EVM development. And since then I was only going deeper and deeper. I remember the first time I set up the MetaMask wallet, and I was able to send actual ETH from one wallet to another wallet. that I both owned, but like, they had different seed phrases. They were like different pieces of software. I could see it on Etherscan. And I was like, wow, that's actually cool. Because I remember I used to call Bitcoin in like, 2016, 17, just as like, something to discover. I would buy $100 on Coinbase somewhere and I would just like hold it. But I always knew that if Coinbase goes down or like I just lose access to this app, I never really owned this Bitcoin. I didn't know how to solve my problem, but I just knew that this app is not giving me like the full experience that like YouTube is telling me about. And I didn't know how to cross that chasm. And then like, the bull run stopped and I forgot about it.
So you found out initially through YouTube videos and seeing all that and then buying some Bitcoin through Coinbase?
I wouldn't call that, as proper crypto onboarding because like everyone was doing this in 2017.
I was sitting in school. We were joking about the price being volatile. That's all I did.
Yeah, like, I was sitting in the school and we were getting Coinbase accounts.
We in Germany you had to be 18 to get a Coinbase account. All that, so there wasn't even on our minds.
So I was 19 when doing that run. So
we got what we did is we managed to, like, at least with some GPUs, I personally tried to do some Ethereum mining and couldn't figure out how to store my private key, the new JSON it generates. So I wasn't able to figure out how to mine to the same one again. I was like, okay, that's stupid. I'm playing video games.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have quite a few friends that started mining ETH around that time, and they did quite well.
Yeah, I've never gone around to calculate it because I don't even want to know.
Yeah.
One friend of mine in 2018, I set him up with just running the miner in the background because he had his PC on anyways all the time. And by then, the programs were good enough so that they would manage the key phrase for you so that you mint to the same wallet. Yeah. And you could even mine to a wallet that wasn't even generated with, like, just on device. And what they ended up doing is, like, he probably has $800 he did within a month or so. So it's actually like sizable side income for just being a student. Well, then he lost access to his private key for that wallet. So now they're just like, at the time there were $2,000 in there, which now he isn't able to get.
Damn, I'm sorry.
No, that happened. If you think about this whole like blockchain ecosystem, what's like the core business problem that it solves for you?
So obviously for me, whenever I can pay with stablecoins, that's much more convenient than going through the banks. And also international, as someone who deals a lot with American business side, but lives in Poland and uses a Polish bank, like I got massively screwed on international transfers and currency exchange. Actually, I probably overpaid so much money on these through random, apps and interfaces that's, were charging me too much. Banks that were doing interchange transfers. So payment in USDC is a huge unlock for anything business related. But I think, I was always like, consumer social founder or person. And for me, the most exciting thing is like less what type of business problem does it solve, or if it's more like what type of user experience does it enable. And in that way, the key business advantage I got from working on Supercast and in the blockchain ecosystem is being able to start my social app without growing my own user base, which is something unthinkable in the old paradigm. If there is like Instagram, maybe you can build some tooling for Instagram, but it's impossible to build your own client on top of Instagram. There was some alternative clients over Reddit, and recently Reddit totally got rid of them because the only business for these companies is the ad model, is selling ad space. And to sell ad space, you need to have the control over all of the eyeballs that are on your platform. So you literally, the business model totally excludes allowing people to build their own apps on top of your user base. Where in crypto, you have so many different business models, especially around taking fees on different transactions that are being made on your app, that very often you want to allow people to build different interfaces on top of your smart contract or on top of your user base, because you are contributing to the network effect of given protocol. So for me, I was able to plug into Farcaster user base, and now I'm a social founder without the pain of growing your social app to 10,000 retained users, because I kind of got it over past year, not for free, but I could just plug to the distribution of another crypto app, and it worked for me.
So it's more like all of the composability and the way that people think about it in the way of, because it's all programmable, I do not have to sell you ad space or do whatever, because I can actually just program in a fee, and that means that I will always get some kind of return. Means that this change in business paradigm and business model allows you to do more programmability, and that's what you think is like the coolest?
I would say, if we are thinking about this, the only scalable method to make money on Web2 social apps is offering ad space or subscriptions, but that's like a second. That's always secondary.
SaaS, and like some people have built like the like scheduling tools or analytics tools. Yeah, but all those rely on the APIs where we were just talking about earlier. Of they will just always be gone.
Yeah, and tools are like not scalable. There are great small businesses, but you can't build $1 billion business just on social media tools alone. Unless you're like exactly, unless you're going like into much larger markets, which is like marketing tools. But then like you get everything together, like CRM, campaign management, all of this shit, and the tooling for social media is like one part of like a big puzzle. And then you package this going to enterprises and you sell large contracts. You can make it work, but like you're not gonna become a billionaire on a $10 subscription to a scheduling tool. I can promise you that. So
wait, did you say you tried?
With a different end goal in mind, but yeah, I still am playing this game.
Isn't that how Supercast started out?
Yeah, this is exactly how Supercast started.
It's like, what made you go, people want subscriptions or whatever else? I'll just build this because Farcaster gives me the distribution. What was ticking you off to that?
So I think for me, just Farcaster is very important. I believe this is the future of social media on the ideological level. Maybe like I'm the most ideological in the whole crypto. I'm mostly ideological about having the equal access to social media. Not that like I think the money part is equally important, but hasn't visualized so far. With social media, I think we already built like a really cool place on the internet purely on crypto rails with Farcaster. So I just think this is like an opportunity for right now. So I believe Farcaster is super important. I also believe Farcaster will not be able to win if there is no alternative clients and like different third-party apps built on top of that. And in general, I'm a person that likes to take action, and I was like, oh fuck, I can be the person that's gonna build the next generation of apps. And 1 year later, here we are.
How did you go from I can be that person to committing your first code, shipping it, and then actually getting it out to user? Like walk me through like this whole, especially like psychologically for you as a founder, not as much as through like the actual code details of it, because that was changing, but like from I can be this person, like what then happened?
I think that the first question that you need to answer is your personal financial situation. It's like, how long can I go without having a significant income? Or how long, how many developers, how much resources do I even need to get this off the ground? So making this calculation is very important for me. It was quite favorable. Starting Supercast, I still had, a few months of personal runway. I didn't need any developers because I can code it myself. But at the same time, I knew that I cannot do it for 2 years. I cannot build a free app and pay for servers and not raise money and not have any revenue for 2 years. That was impossible. Some people can do that. If you made your money on some exit before, or trading crypto, or maybe we were born into some money, you can probably spend 2 years without income just building something. It wasn't the case for me. So, Supercast historically, till this day, is a paid-only product. So you need to pay a monthly subscription to actually use Supercast. And this definitely helped me just organize my life around working 100% on Supercast. And now, a year later, actually, I'm in a situation where, taking all the learnings I had of running this app and running this business, I can now take next steps of actually, opening up the free plan, building the mobile app, with this revenue that I optimized for very early on. I can now do actual cool things that I couldn't really afford doing if I was starting from scratch.
What's interesting there to me is you're saying it was a paid product. Initially, it was free. When I signed up to Supercast, there was a short period of a few months where it was totally free, and Webcast, the main client, was just going down a lot because they had scalability issues because of user demand, and then you were just there because you had decided to do this a couple months, 2 or 3 months earlier, and then everyone was like, oh, well, Webcast is down, we just have to go to Supercast. Then I tried out Supercast, and I was like, okay, here's whatever, I'll just try it out. It doesn't really work for me, whatever. I'll just go back to Webcast once Webcast was back on. And then Webcast went down again and again. And then for me, I was like, okay, fuck this shit. I'll actually properly set up Supercast and all of it. And then
that was very unexpected go-to-market strategy.
No, but it worked. And I had one day of free Supercast before you said oh, I'm turning off the free tier.
Yeah.
And I think I remember I'm doing a full-on thread of just all the little pain points I had of using Supercast.
Yeah, I remember.
And I feel like that's the first time I actually properly interacted with you, I think. Because before that, I was just seeing some people repost your stuff of oh, I'm building a client. I'm dude, whatever. He's building a client on a network of 5,000 people. It's oh yeah, he has scheduling. I don't need scheduling. I just post all day because I'm on here all day. And then it was interesting to see how many people wanted scheduling, all of it.
Yeah, that surprised me as well.
Then the way that you got me is, okay, there's this Webcast goes down again and again. I'm like, okay, fuck, I'm addicted to this Farcaster network. Let me pay.
Yeah.
So I signed up. I saw there's a yearly plan and a 10 a monthly, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm paying for the full year. So
you're on the full year. Wow.
I think I'm on the full year, yeah. Because I'm I'm a cash flow person. So if I can
I remember.
If I have cash flow today, and I can spend out of cash flow today and not worry about cash flow for another 12 months, that's great to me. So I really maximize on cash flow. If somebody offered me $10,000 today and I had a method of generating cash flow with that, cool. Otherwise, dude, pay me $1,000 over 12 months. So I'll not take the discount on today if I don't have a way of turning that into more cash or cash flow. Otherwise, it's great. Give me 10 today. I'll figure out more cash flow. I have more than 12 by the end. So that's how I think, if that makes sense. And then that's how I got into Supercast. And then we did more of those threads. And then the way Supercast is laid out, for those unfamiliar, is was always just a desktop thing. Then more users came, pushed Roy to do mobile. So he optimized the web page for mobile so that it worked there as well. And I'm always on desktop. And on desktop, it's the only client that is laid out in a way that I do not have to basically have 5 tabs open to keep up with conversations. and follow my like notifications and get through them. So that's why I was like, wait, okay, this saves me a couple of hours every week because I'm just so on there. Fair, worth it.
Nice. Yeah, thanks to that, I am able to work on Supercast every day and make it better and better every day, which is a dream coming true.
How hard was it for you when you had the free plan and you had like your initial just, I'm actually getting paid for some of it? Because I think you launched like a wait list or something even while you were building it the first month.
So I didn't launch like a proper wait list. And so a lot of people treat waitlists as growth hacks. And actually a lot of people treat waitlists for growth hacks. I treat waitlists as actual waitlists of like when I want to start promoting something before it's ready. And, actually the pattern follows with the Supercast, with the beta of Supercast and with the AI pets right now. I am the type of person or like a businessman where like I want everyone to be aware of what I'm working on a month ahead of like something is live. If something actually takes a month to build, I will be marketing this a month ahead. Most of the stuff I'm releasing actually takes like a few days to build. So, I'm constantly releasing and announcing things, but with Supercast, it took like 2 months to build. So I was at the point when I was able to like deploy production and have people sign in and like use something inside of the app. And I called it like a beta version because it was a beta. It was like unusable, but you could sign in and maybe you could create a list and maybe you could like, interact with people on the feed. But people already took that, of course, took that as like, wait list, I need to be on this wait list. This is probably some hot shit and I need to get as soon as possible.
Yeah, no,
I didn't even have a wait list.
Dude, I remember it being like, I want Supercast beta and all of that. And I'm generally the type of guy
you couldn't be
on
Supercast beta if you only used it, on the free plan for 1 day.
No, I wasn't. But people were like, I'm on this, like, whatever.
Okay.
And I just treated it as like, okay, wait, this is one of those other like bullshit things, and it's going to be gone in 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. This is how most of the stuff ends.
Yeah, and that's why I'm treating it that way. I also grew up like rural Germany, so I'm probably also too traditional in some of those senses, where I'm not this like U.S. hyper like. There were some my words in my head that I didn't want to hyper-stimulated person is the proper word to announce it. And then so that didn't click for me, but now
I hate fake hype as well.
But now with you then launched it, you then grew it. How was the emotional side of it when you were like, okay, like I'm launching it, and will I be able to fully work on this? How was that for you as a founder?
So the beginning wasn't very emotional, and like at the beginning, after like a month of running this, I quickly realized that with the current Farcaster growth, it was very hard to actually make a living out of this, and I didn't have like much options to grow it. So I was still actually contracting as a software developer with like other crypto startup, and I remember there was one day in February that like was actually very, very, very emotional when it was maybe like week 2 of very intense Farcaster growth due to frames release and degen price appreciation. And that was this time when WordPress was going down and Dan was advising people to use Supercast, which was that was your story.
Sweet.
And I saw like a meaningful uptick in the revenue, which was nice, but maybe it was an uptick from, getting $500 a month to like $800 a month, which, doesn't get you much in the Western world. Doesn't get you far in the Western world. But then there was a day in February when WordPress went down for a long time. And a lot of people were like onboarding on Supercast without paying. They were just like signing in and using the app. And at some point, they had like 5,000 people from Asia on this side on the website. And then through like, some buggy leaky implementations between me, Neinar, and Vercel. Like Vercel wasn't buggy, but Vercel started charging us a lot for...
Just to fill people in, Degen is a token that launched on Farcaster. Frames is like a fun little game mechanic, so that like drew a bunch of people. Vercel is the infrastructure provider that hosts the webpage and the API, so that's where the code is running, and Neinar is plugging all the Farcaster data. So just so that people have that context.
Yeah, cool. I'm very rarely on podcasts that need explaining these these names, but I woke up around like as usual 6 a.m. I woke up to many messages that everything is like booming and so many people are in the app, and Neinar is like DMing me that the traffic is crazy, but like I'm checking the app, everything is fine, like it works, it's great. And I'm going to gym as I usually do in the morning, and I start checking my email and I see the Vercel emails, and I'm quite happy, like this moment when you go from like free plans to paid plans, you're like, oh shit, I'm real now. It's real. Okay. And between my sets, I'm starting to read these emails. I'm starting to do some mental maths on how these things work out. And literally, like we were being charged. I was being charged like $200 an hour for essentially a lot of timeouts on very misconfigured serverless functions. And I didn't expect it when I was building, Supercast. I was just shipping things, and I didn't expect this particular scenarios. And that was a moment when I immediately had to, stop my workouts, get back to my apartment. I turned off the website for 6 to 8 hours in a way that I literally put a different page instead of my app, so you couldn't get to my app. You just saw like an announcement.
Is it the dog, or was it like an?
No, it wasn't a dog. It was just like
Okay.
It was just text of saying, "Hey, Supercast is down right now. We're figuring out. We're working on bringing it back." And I even had some funny pasta where you could press a button and it would prompt you to write something like, "Edward, please bring Supercast back."
Yeah, because nowadays it's always like a funny little dog character that you put on screen.
So dog is when the app crashes, and at that time I just put a text that I don't know what to do. And after 8 hours, the app came back in the paid only plan, and that was like a first boom because like so many people like instantly paid. So I went from something like this, like $800 a month to revenue that allowed me to go full time on Supercast, which was fantastic. And I think these were like the most emotional times around the beginning. Of course, there was a lot of different hurdles and emotions on the way, but I think this was like the most significant one.
No, that's crazy. Like I just imagine being in the gym, saying like, "Oh, I'm losing $200 an hour," which basically, if this runs for
it's like $5K a day.
If this runs for 2 more hours, I'm out of my monthly revenue without paying myself.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. I'll go home and fix this shit.
You learn the very hard lesson about the freemium plans. Like freemium plans don't convert. Like if you're doing a freemium plan, you need to be ready that you're gonna make much less money than just on the paid only plan. And that's just how this business works. So yeah, very, very good lesson for me.
Would you say that like if you're doing a free plan, you should already have figured out how to get free revenue? If you're like a one-person startup potentially, because some other people always just plug venture funding in there and be like, "Oh yeah, we don't care, we just want growth."
Depends on what you're optimizing for and what you want to monetize down the line. If you have just one business model of selling a premium subscription, you literally cannot have a free plan. This is not gonna work for you. You should charge for the subscription at the very first, account registration setup or whatever. If you have different business ideas Like, for example, you want to sell the most popularly ads, but this is like less possible on a small scale. But in crypto, maybe you want to sell some NFTs, or maybe you want to take a fee from transactions, or you want to sell some, items or cosmetics inside of the game. Then, like, if you have like a good path to sell these in your generally free experience, then obviously, if you want to sell these, you cannot have a paid-only app. Like,
because
it works with some games where you pay for the game and then you pay inside of the game. But even like the most revenue-bringing games like Fortnite, Roblox, or League of Legends or Dota, like they are free, and then they upsell you later.
What's interesting there is Counter-Strike was never free until they made it free. Like the first few like actual hypes of Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike had in-game cosmetics and all of that, which doesn't change anything in the game. It's just purely cosmetics. But the game at that time was $13. It's like $12.99. So you would have to buy Counter-Strike, and some people would then buy Counter-Strike and then spend thousands of dollars in in-game loot boxes to unbox some of those cosmetics because some were rarer. There's an economy forming around them, which is one of the samples, like $12.99 for like standards at that time in most of the countries from a player base perspective is like the like two lunch meals for a child. It's like me and friends, if we just were like, oh yeah, we're eating at school, and we just didn't eat, and we got home, and then we ate at home. That meant like after 2 days we could buy Counter-Strike, so to say. So that's now Counter-Strike is free. To your point, right? Like they've realized the same thing. Whereas if we get more and more people in, we have a model of converting some of our player base into that. And for games, it's really interesting how they break it down. There's a real science. So which may for a consumer social founder like you may be interesting. Where what they say is there's the hardcore achievers. I mean, like the hyper competitive guy won't pay for skins, doesn't even care, just wants to achieve. So you need to give him a ranking system or something that he can climb. Like always give him one next step, one level up, which in a social system may be followers, for example, potentially, or something else. Then there's this guy that always just wants to wander around, like the explorer type. Explorer type just wants to explore. So there isn't really that much to go. The hyper competitive guy, if you're Clash of Clans, for example, and not a shooter where you can save him time and level him up faster, may pay. Then the cosmetics guy, obviously, who cares about looks, status, and all of those like stuff, he will obviously pay for the status. And then there's the collector. Collector will also pay to collect. I feel like those four may be interesting for social apps, especially if you have crypto rails. I mean, like this financial programmable thing, this collectible thing in there. And I saw you doing Supercast Moments, which is like, oh, I'm launching a new version of Supercast here to all my users. You can collect this. And one of those actually, which doesn't have a lot of collectors because it was that early, is now actually worth something, which is interesting to tie back into this, like, oh, this gaming stuff may actually work for consumer social, maybe even crypto.
Actually, with Supercast Moments, the context for non-crypto listeners, it's an NFT drop it's an NFT collection of like screenshots of Supercast. So there's like 3 or 4 of them so far. But it's also something that I'm experimenting with, mostly as an addition to Supercast. But if you're like a hardcore fan, you can also like, collect these NFTs on the way. At the beginning, I was doing them as like collectibles that people can pay for, like essentially alongside Supercast. But now I think more about it mostly as like a promotional material. And I actually need to bring it back. I wasn't doing this. I was working on this for a few months. So
I just saw it because initially you'd launched those, and I was like, Supercast, like, well, mint. This isn't actually free. This is like $2 or $3. Like, why should I care?
Yeah. Now when I bring it back, I'll make sure that every subscriber gets a free version.
But like
straight to the wallet.
Yeah, but this mechanic makes the early ones more special because those people like that have those or like got them at the time actually were like, oh no, I care about Supercast enough to pay $2 or $3 in fees to get it. And the only like comparison that I have is people taking screenshots of like the early Facebook or whatever homepage and be like, I was there when this looked like this.
This is exactly what it's supposed to serve.
But now with like blockchain, you can actually like show, oh, he was actually there. Like when I'm telling you, oh, I tried to mine like Ethereum in 2016, It's like, okay, who cares? Do I still have that wallet to prove it, right? Potentially not, because I wasn't able to figure out how to actually make it mine to the same wallet again. When I'm telling people, oh, like I started when like an artist I followed did her first like NFT drop, and you would have to bid on it, and I paid stupid amounts for just the ability to bid on it and potentially win it. It's like,
I remember that was stupid.
Okay, I have that on chain. If I tell people like, oh, like whatever happened in school or whatever project I did, if there's no like track record of me recording or whatever, those vanish with time. I feel like that's a cool feature of blockchain where you can actually say like, oh no, I was actually a user of this because look here, it's like founder dropped this to me. I actually have this. I was on Facebook 2012, but nobody believes me unless I take out my phone with my Facebook account and I'm like, okay,
that's a very fun use case, actually.
Which it doesn't have anything to do with programmable or financial stuff. It's more the collectible because of the history, and that history enables also the financial stuff. It's like Cassandra Hart, Cassie was having an interesting take on this, where she said, like, well, blockchain was intended as a time chain. I mean, like just a time synchronization mechanism, but because of those like blocks synchronizing time with some data, that led to like actually be a good setup for ledger. And that now is the financial ledger we have, which is also one of the core problems of scaling it to applications. Doesn't really work if you want to have synchronized state every single time. That has to keep the order and has absolute ordering over the global state. And she's like, well, okay, those architectures don't even really scale, and like they will not be the internet computer that Ethereum promised to be, and all the other ones still have that same limitation. So that's what led her down the road of building her project, which is Clearroom. That's some fun sidetrack, to me at least. If you're explaining all of those like benefits of Farcaster and the whole like blockchain ecosystem to friends, what do you usually say?
I usually don't explain it to friends. I have most of my friends like, very outside of crypto. I have this like big separation, and I just say that I have an app on the internet and it's taking off. But
that last part is important.
But Supercast is still not like a mobile app, and it's possible, but it's not straightforward to onboard other people. So usually I just like, stay off track of the record on this with my friends. Just as like, if I have like a doctor friend, I don't ask them about their surgeries they're doing. It's like,
yeah, it's like, oh, he's a surgeon, whatever.
Yeah. I'm a guy on the internet.
For me, that's interesting because there's some friends of mine who are like that. And then there are others who work in IT and all of that, and then they really want to know. And then it's like, okay, do they get it? Don't they? How do I explain it to them? What's the like world they live in? What's the vocabulary they use? And then I try to fit it within that.
So the only way to get your friends to be really excited about what you are excited technologically is to show them something cool that they can do. And very frankly, so Supercast right now has anonymous voting, anonymous posting, and actually, I showed it to my friend and he thought it's cool. And once I have the mobile app, this will be something that I can show to people, and it will be really fun. But until you have something that takes 10 seconds to understand and get value in 10 seconds, why would you bother?
For like crypto, it probably took a while to get those like wallet to wallet sense to work.
Yeah.
Right, when you were playing around with it, and then you were super excited. How do you think about like the Farcaster experience and like Supercast having that? Brabus called it a 1 second wow moment, where they're like, you were talking about like 20 seconds for it to work, which doesn't work. Brabus is saying like, if within 1 second you don't have a wow effect, we have built the wrong. It's like, how do you think about having those in what you're building?
It's a consumer problem, and you can only make this happen with a mobile app, because like you don't demo anything to your friends on your laptop. So you need to have a mobile app, and you need to have like 3 different apps that do something cool, whether it's like they create an AI pet, or you can cast anonymously to tens of thousands of people, or you can, make some money trading something, or you can, even better, like if you want to show your friends something, maybe you can post a link to an NFT and you earn rewards from people minting that NFT. So experiences like that is what gets people going, like either making money or acquiring status or having a possibility to find the love of your life. You need to think in these directions rather than, just something is possible. I can send money from A to B. Like, everyone can do it. There are caveats, of course. One is more efficient, but in social, your friends are much better off not knowing what you're doing until it's actually a hit.
Yeah, I feel like some of those conversations are like, oh, what are you doing? And then it's like, well, okay, yeah, no, I don't get it. Cool for you.
Yeah, don't bother.
No, it's just fine to me. It's like all of my friends know that I'm like always down what I want to do, and we just have fun as friends. And if there are paths to work together, we usually find a way. The hardest thing there, which in my friend group has been really great so far, has separating friendship from a business relationship. Because a personal relationship isn't a business relationship, and a personal relationship isn't a business relationship. And most of the people I met try to connect the two. Or I try to keep it really separate, because I could be in love with somebody business-wise. Doesn't mean I need to love them personally. While the other way around as well. I can have a really, really great friend that I would never work with, but still is a really great friend. And if I tried working with them and then it doesn't work anymore, we should still be best friends because we had a really good friendship. Yeah. And I feel like communication is really key. So every time I do some work stuff with people or I explain, it's like, wait, this is now business. Please, you also switch to business mode. And if that other person isn't able to switch the two, and we just never have that conversation. Yeah. If people look into this whole blockchain, Farcaster, social ecosystem, where do you usually send them? What's your favorite resource or things to look at?
Just sign up on Warpcast. The problem is Warpcast right now doesn't have a wow moment either. It takes a lot of research to understand, why would you be into frames? Why would you be into this Farcaster tokens? And all of this stuff. Right now, Farcaster has a great fit of connecting like-minded people, and like-minded is usually already predefined by willing, to spend hours to research this new app and this new place on the internet, which makes for really engaged people. It makes for bringing really great people together and great developers together. But it's not a great consumer experience yet.
So you don't usually send the developer documentation around to developer friends and you develop on this thing. This thing is really cool. I believe in it. You're more okay, wait, if I can get to a magic moment, then I will.
Yeah, for developers, the magic moment is usually not even the docs. It's how many people you can reach. Even with developers, I don't know many people who are just excited about using some sort of an API to, publish a post to a network. Because even then, if I send you just a documentation to this API, you still can have questions how is it actually decentralized? What's the actual UX of this, of that? And I think by default people are skeptical. So, it's a hard pitch. The only pitch for developers is that, hey, look at this. I built a business on this user base that does X, Y, and Z. You can do it too. I can show you how to do it. And that's the only way, in my opinion.
Yeah, in my experience working with projects and building for other businesses as a business on Farcaster, I feel like if you already are engaged in crypto and then you see, oh, there's a large user base of crypto users I can tap into, because I can show them the wallet stats and how much money people hold on Farcaster, and they're like, wait, I can make tens of thousands of dollars a month just by tapping into that, or get more users from my app easily because it is so programmable and in feed. That is exciting to them. Talking to people that aren't in that fit of, oh, we just need to get those users because we already have a product, nobody cares. unless it's a Farcaster native thing. And then we're talking about somebody that has seen what you're seeing and is like, okay, I just find that this is the biggest opportunity in Web3, and I just want to move.
Yeah, and like to be realistic, no one should care.
No, yeah, but it is one of those moves where I personally feel like, well, if this works out, then people like obviously like it's going to look obvious in hindsight. Well, we're sitting here, end of 2024, and it doesn't really feel obvious, and a lot of people are generally dumping on it. It's like, oh, who's using this? But I feel like some of the smartest minds in the Ethereum and blockchain space are on it and are generally excited about it, which has meant something over the last 10 years, looking at Ethereum at least.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it definitely has like the brightest people in crypto right now.
As a general like closing remark, do you have anything where you're like, okay, this what people really should look at besides like Supercast obviously and woj.eth on Farcaster? It's your handle?
Yeah, I'm just there. I'm also on X at Wojtek WTF, but it's definitely the secondary place where I post.
Yeah, sign up to Supercast.
Yeah,
pay him, then you can reach him.
Yes.
Yes. You've moved up that ladder of status.
Yes, I definitely respond much faster and much more thoughtfully to my users.
Yeah, I also feel that like tagging somebody, like if somebody is really into Farcaster or like Twitter or whatever social media, tagging them or commenting on their stuff gets you seen way more than sending a direct message or sometimes even a text message for some people. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, social makes it work. Love what you're building, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, likewise. That was fun chat.
Thank you for watching Techsuite for the C-Suite. You can get to our lovely guest in the description. Every links to find our guest is there. Ask any questions you potentially have. Share this with a friend who really, really gets value out of this episode, and make sure to follow to not miss future episodes.